It's just not the same world, you know. You know, imagine if we had like YouTube and everything we have today back in the 90s. Like, imagine how much different it would be. You know, back when I was growing up, you didn't have to be politically correct. You didn't have to be in a group. And if you had a disorder, you know, back in the 90s, back when I was a kid, in the early 2000s, you know, people labeled you as there was something wrong with you. Now, here I am in my early 30s, fast forward 2019. And I'm living in a world where there's something wrong with you if there isn't something wrong with you. Things have changed so much in the last only 30 years. It's scary. I mean, even the last 10 years, things seem different. I mean, back when I was like 20, whatever, in the 2000s, you know, I got out of school, you know, eventually found work, but, you know, when I was like, you know, young, early 20s, 20, started having serious relationships, started fucking around, and, you know, nothing I don't think anybody should be proud of, just normal experiences. Even back then, when I was first getting out there, you know, started having an intimate life. It was so much different when I first started than it is today. Back then, it was more dangerous. There was a lot of thugs back in the, like, you know, the 2000s, the early 2010s even. Now, the same streets is completely different. There are no thugs. There are no bad boys. There's really none of that in 2019. It's completely different. We're all wearing skinny jeans now, and you know, and we all have gay acceptance or whatever, or we're just indifferent to it. But back when I was growing up, you know, it was completely different. It was nothing like this, you know. I mean, I never thought in my wildest dreams things would change this much in so little time. I mean, it might have started in, you know, with the millennials, the early 80s maybe, but it wasn't like this though. Early 90s, we went out. We had we had arcades, the movies. There was plenty of opportunities to meet people, to mingle, you know. It's not like that anymore. That's why, like, I get online and I don't sound like I'm online. It really doesn't. You know, I talk often as if I'm not online because that's the world that I grew up in. Once you're 30, and I've noticed this, I've told You know, people in my real life, women who are in my age group that I, have a relationship with personally. She loves to listen to like music from the 90s. She likes slow jams from the 90s, freaky music from the 90s. They had a lot of R&B, stuff like that. And I told her, I thought about it. It's been weighing on my mind. I just slipped it out and just told her, once you hit 30, you're old. You are considered old. By society standards, you are old. When you're 30, it's over. You're not going to like anything new. You're not going to like anything in the current times. Anything in the present. And well, she didn't disagree with me. I mean, at least for me, that's what it was like. My 20s and my now 30s, it's different. It's not that I'm not the same person, but it's just in my 20s, I cared about the current times. I always listened to the current music. I did more modern things. At least as much as I wanted to. I thought everybody else was old. I was, young. When you're in your 20s, you're just starting your life, so you're gonna do stupid things. It's normal. Did a lot of smoking weed and drinking, even pills. I fucked around a lot. Nearly got myself killed a couple times. For fucking thugs girls. They had fine chicks. I mean, this was what it was like back in like 2008, 2009, 2010. For me, 2011 even. Now it's nothing like that. But one thing I can say is I feel a lot better when I'm just playing games or I'm outside in the real world and not on YouTube. Because this is not really a place for me. Personally, this is not a place for me. I doubt anybody who will watch this will have anything probably similar to the experiences that I just brought up. Honestly. Back when I was young and wild in my 20s, and not that there weren't bad times, there were bad times, because I would just start my life. So, yeah, it wasn't perfect. I'll grant you that. But, I wasn't always as calm and, pretty much like chill and happy like I am today. Now I'm just relaxed as fuck. I'm not even trying to really impress people anymore, honestly. We're trying to get through to people. I just gave up on that completely. It's fucking YouTube. What do I expect? But, I mean, my 20s are a foreign language. Back when I was in my 20s, especially early 20s, before I was 25, and I was really young and green, I never heard of incel, TFL, red pill, blue pill. I never heard of MGTOW. I didn't even know what a MGTOW was until 2014 when I found it on YouTube. And I said, okay, I can relate to some of this stuff. You know, I have some life experience to see where some of these people might be right. But the problem is, you know, I'm just an individual, period. I don't really consider myself anything. That's my conclusion. You know, I didn't know what none of this stuff was. I didn't even know what a trad was. I never heard of any of these words, you know, traditional. I mean, I've heard of the word traditional, but I didn't, you know, there was never really like a label for it. You know, back when I was growing up in the 90s, there wasn't all these different classifications of people. It just wasn't there, you know. You were just you, and hopefully, you know, you had at least a few friends. You know, hopefully you weren't considered weird back then. But now, hopefully you didn't have a mental problem back then. Because hopefully you had something to make up for it. Now, it's the norm to have a severe mental problem. It's completely different. Now, you know, it makes you interesting to have bipolar. It makes you interesting to have schizophrenia or anything. Everybody says they have anxiety and depression, which people always had those things. I mean, that was always around. But now it's like it's cool. It's the norm. It's, you know, people don't just have it anymore. It has to be something that makes you better than somebody who does not have it. And it's, to me, it's just more divide and conquer, really. Because if you don't have any issues and if you don't want to, you know, have a severe mental disorder, you're considered maybe a threat, or you're just, there's something wrong with you because because you don't have a severe mental problem. And I'm kind of thinking, like, how did it get like this? You know. So I did some YouTube searching just now before I did this live stream about Gen X. Because I feel like a Gen Xer, you know, than anything else. So I'm just play this a little bit. And we'll just see. We'll just take it from here.
We love to talk about the ongoing cultural and economic war between the baby boomers and the millennials, and even the rise of the new Generation Z. But there's one group that's often overlooked in these conversations, and that's Generation X, the ones who grew up between the boomers and millennials, and like many middle children, was overshadowed by both. In this video, I'll cover why Gen X deserves more credit, both good and bad, for quietly changing the world. You're watching Future Now, videos about the future of tech and society. If you were confused by all these generation names at the start of the video, allow me to break it down for you. The specific years attributed to each generation vary throughout different literature, so I will use the ranges defined by the Pew Research Center. I should also mention that a lot of this video will be focused on the United States population because that's where I am. Obviously, these generations had different experiences in different parts of the world. Baby boomers is the name given to the generation born between 1946 and 1964.
Yeah, that was probably actually the best generation. I mean, I don't know. Let me take that back. I don't know. Because we can always blame the last generation on why things are bad. Because I know that's what we're going to do, so. Okay, let me not speak too soon.
So called because they were part of the steep rise in population following World War II, a literal boom in babies born. Up until millennials overtook them, they made up the largest portion of the world population, and as such, had an outsized influence on culture, the economy, and politics. Generation X is the population of people born between 1965 and 1980. Appropriately, the X refers to something unknown, the name as resistant to definition as a demographic that carries it. Millennials, I'm sure you've heard of as...
See, I can relate to that. Stop right there. Yeah. That is what it feels like. Unknown. Who are you? You don't have any type of disorder to make you special? You don't have any label for yourself? Who are you? You're unknown. Yep. That's me on YouTube. Outside of gaming somewhere. Thank God I'm doing that. And it's slowly getting more and more successful. But, so sometimes I spend a lot of time outside, with people I know personally because online is a lot different from YouTube. But
and 1980. Appropriately, the X refers to something unknown, the name as resistant to definition as a demographic that carries it. Millennials, I'm sure you've heard of as the current largest demographic, referring to those born between 1981 and 1996. I made a whole video about millennials and the often repeated phrase that they are killing every industry, so called because they grew up at the turn of the millennium. Lastly, Generation Z is the most recent demographic, those born after 1997. That seems to be the name that's most used so far, although it's still too early to see if it will stick, with other generation names having been used such as the I generation, referring to this generation growing up with smartphones. Part of the reason I wanted to make this video is because when I made my video titled Why Millennials Are Killing Everything, I fell into the same pattern others often do of talking about the tension between baby boomers and millennials while completely overlooking Generation X, the middle child. Baby boomers inherited a country with a booming economy in the US and quickly went to work ruining it along with the environment. They racked up the national debt, burned record amounts of fossil fuels. Many Gen Xers pointed this out in the comments and inspired me to dig a little deeper into why Gen X is rarely discussed in popular media and how, despite this, have actually been and continue to be incredibly influential. Gen Xers overall had a very different experience from their parents growing up, in that during the 60s and 70s, the divorce rate skyrocketed in the US, leading to new family dynamics, and at the same time, it became more common for women to join the workforce rather than stay at home. Because childcare programs were not yet commonplace, many Gen X children spent a lot of their time with little to no adult supervision as their parents were at work when they got out of school.
Yep. I have experience with that. That's what it was like for me, a child. Often before I was even a teenager, I had to, especially me because I was the oldest. I have two sisters that are younger. So I had to learn quickly. Thank goodness I was actually a smart kid, but you know, I had to hurry up, learn how to cook, or at least do something to eat for myself. I mean, our parents had food out, of course. I mean, I wasn't abandoned, but the parents would work sometimes late. So, I had to get used to being home with no adult supervision at, 10 years old, even as young as like 10, 11. Oh, yeah, that's what it was like. I'm telling you, man. They made, according to this video, I'm a millennial, being born in 88, but I'm actually, really a Gen Xer, really.
That's why some use the phrase latchkey generation to refer to this demographic cohort. A latchkey kid is one who comes home alone after school because their parents are at work. The name refers to...
That was me. I came home alone after school because my parents were at work. That was me.
The key the kids carried with them or got from under the mat or the porch to open the door. Their adolescence was a tumultuous time in the United States with an ongoing crack epidemic, an increase in violent crime, and the emergence of the AIDS epidemic. At the same time, this was one of the most diverse generations in history.
Yep, I heard about that. When I was in high school, I was already hearing about STDs, girls getting pregnant and having STDs at 14. Female students I went to school with. Yeah, I mean, it was happening. Yep. Started high school 02.
In part to an increase in immigration and the first generation to grow up post-integration after the end to the racist Jim Crow laws. In their youth, the media characterized Gen X as disaffected, apathetic, cynical, and slackers. They were the MTV gen.
Yep. I know I'm cynical. Maybe I need to work on that.
Generation lived through the rise of music videos, grunge music, and hip-hop. They were rebellious and reluctant to grow up. But eventually, we all have to become adults, and when Gen Xers did, they proved everyone wrong about the stereotypes they were boxed into. Sure, you're Gen X.
Yep, I can relate to that too. I have experience with being rebellious, but once, them teenage years were leaving me, started growing up, becoming a young adult, I was damn near teaching my parents shit. My entire mindset completely changed.
Dad probably still wears his Nirvana t-shirt every now and then, but does he still have that teen spirit? Sorry, I tried to come up with a Nirvana joke, but that failed. Never mind. According to a Stanford University study, Gen X youth were indeed more cynical and disaffected than previous generations were in their youth. But they also found that all generations were more cynical and disaffected during this time period, meaning it wasn't a uniquely Gen X phenomenon. In fact, perhaps the latchkey generation learned to work hard and be independent by being unable to rely as much on their parents, and that's what led to their success as adults.
Yep. Yeah. All this is on point.
Millennials and Gen Z are often defined by their affinity for the internet and technology, but Generation X were actually the first to grow up with computers and video games at home. Yep. Generation X grew up to become the founders of the modern Silicon Valley tech industry and led the country's economic...
Yeah, we were the first. I remember being like 10 years old. Dad Dad bought me my first PlayStation. This, back in the mid 90s to late 90s, the arcades. I mean, we had some good times as a kid. Good times, I see kids going up today, they look stressed out. I mean, it looks bad. But there was really never a dull moment as a kid. Not for me, at least. But it was just different, And I really wish people would talk about this stuff more online. Like, we don't really talk about the real shit, really. That's a great thing about being a Gen Xer, Because our experiences were so different from everyone else's that,
recovery of the 1990s. Their previously negatively spoken about rebelliousness and disdain for authority actually spurred innovation and disruption of many industries. It's weird to think of Jeff Bezos, on the cusp of Gen X, as a disaffected young person leading.
Like, I have 3. See, I grew up around video games, so, and I'm not the biggest gamer in the world, especially not now because I'm older, but I own, you think I'm broken? I own nothing. I own 3 game systems. 3. A PS2, a PS3, and 4. Because I'm a PlayStation guy. I'm not really into Xbox or none of that other stuff. Because I grew up on PlayStation, so I guess I'm nostalgic, in a way. But, yeah. And for the moron who claims I didn't have anything because I was filming with my phone, a PS3 does not have video capture like a PS4 does. So, and I wanted to stream my PS3 games and, didn't have much for that because I wanted to record storylines. And that was the only way I could really do it. So I just did it that way. But, I mean, it doesn't matter now. But, yeah. I mean, I got a PS4 and I still play my older stuff. Because today's games are just, they're better graphics, but back then the games were more fun. But, I digress.
A revolution against traditional retail giants, when he's now the richest man on earth and seen by many of today's youth as representing corporatism incarnate. In fact, some of today's most well-known leaders fall into the Gen X range. Elon Musk, Larry Page, Susan Wojcicki, Johnny Ive, Justin Trudeau, and, ironically, Jay-Z. Let me know what other notable Gen Xers you can think of in the comments. It turns out that
Me. Me.
The status quo is a pretty good business model and a great engine for innovation. Because Gen Xers grew up in an analog world before the personal computer, they have a unique perspective on how to bridge the past with our future. I believe this is a key behind their success, but also why they seem to be overlooked today. Most people now take for granted the major changes made by Gen Xers. Gen Xers were the first gamers, choosing to stay home playing with their Atari and Nintendo video game systems. The Gen X demand for VHS tapes to watch their favorite movies and shows at home whenever they want has evolved into today's streaming services like Netflix and Hulu. Gen Xers were also the first to start blogging about their lives, and Zay Frank pioneered vlogging before YouTube was even a thing with the show.
Good morning, it's Monday, March 20th. I haven't showered and my breath smells like a poodle crapped in my mouth. Let's be friends as I tell you everything that you need to know about today. It's just like TV, but with pimples.
And despite millennials...
Yep, the difference between real people and those clones, the celebrities selling y'all lies. Okay, but I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, man, I like that already better than YouTube. I mean, YouTube is so censored and politically correct. It might as well be TV. I was gonna wait till tomorrow to do this little live stream, but I'm probably not gonna feel like it, and I'm thinking about this now. So, yeah.
Being inextricably linked to social media, it was actually Gen Xers who founded some of the very first platforms like MySpace, Twitter, and Friendster, which Zuckerberg later used as an inspiration for Facebook. The real test of Generation X, however, is really starting to take shape now as more and more of them take over the highest positions of leadership in the corporate and political world. Will they follow in the footsteps of the baby boomers who largely use their power to feed their own self-interests, or will they be more conscious of their ability to change the world for the better? Early indications show that some of the companies and culture changes led by Gen X could prove problematic. The most obvious one being how the social internet is affecting us on an individual level, how we relate to one another, and ultimately our politics. Of course, the biggest offender seems to be Facebook right now, and that's led by a millennial. Silicon Valley has largely gone unchecked for the last couple of decades, but we're starting to see a shift in this with laws like GDPR in the European Union and the increasingly common hearings of tech CEOs before Congress. To prove themselves different from baby boomers, Generation X will have to show that they are willing to regulate the economic powerhouses they've created in a socially responsible way. If you liked or hated this video, you'll enjoy my videos on
All right. I'm kind of speechless because I mean this is so on point that I just don't know what to say. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. He's like, there are great things about the internet, but the problem is what it is today is people would get on me on this side of YouTube about, oh, why do you play video games and this and that? So I kind of just shut those people out and ignored them and created a whole new channel for myself outside of all of this. And I'm doing quite well. I'm enjoying what I'm doing over there because gaming is really like the only thing online that's not offensive to everybody, So, I mean, let's just be honest. Everybody's so sensitive and, triggered, and we can't just accept the fact that we're all different from each other. So, gaming doesn't offend anybody. Except Donald Trump. But, yeah. All kidding aside, that's why, I mean, I love doing gaming because I don't have to worry about, what I worry about on this channel. I don't have to deal with it. I enjoy doing this too sometimes, so don't get me wrong. I love a good roast every now and then because I'm just an honest asshole. But fortunately, I'm more than just an honest asshole. I like to have fun with people sometimes. Yeah, I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm really just being a Gen Xer. Period. Everything about me is Gen X, really. And before YouTube became what it is today, and me getting this much into YouTube, I never really had to think this much about who I am, honestly. I never had to do this. You know, since we all have to have a label and be all divided and conquered, you know, it really had me thinking, damn, which label would I actually be? You know, what would you call me? I found it. I finally found it. I have Gen X disease. That's my disorder. That's my severe mental disorder. That's it. I mean, I kind of made this live stream longer than I wanted to, especially at this weird time. But you know, I feel as though it had to be done. I feel as though I need to have these conversations with myself online, live. So when somebody watches it, you know, they get whatever they get out of it. Because, you know, I need to do this more. Because up until now, I did so much content on here about who I'm not. Let's talk about who I am now. You know, I am simply a Gen Xer. If you can relate to this being a Gen Xer, hit me up in the comments. Hit me up. Okay, because when I end this, I'm probably going to be asleep. So then I'll wake up and I'll respond to whatever. I don't care if I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down, really. Or most likely probably a million thumbs down, because one thing I've learned from being on the worst parts of YouTube is that any attention you get is good attention. And basically what I mean by that is, if people really didn't want to listen to you or hear what you had to say, they wouldn't even come to your channel. They wouldn't even thumb you down. They wouldn't watch you at all. So it's just people like you, but you hurt their feelings. That's really what it's about, you know. They want to hear you, but they're not as genuine as you are. There's always a difference. So, you know, that's the character I play on here. So if you want to listen to somebody to where you just fake agree with them and you want to fit in somewhere, go to somebody else's channel. But if you want somebody to talk about societal issues, the world we're living in, if you want to hear some George Carlin type shit, then this is the right place. This or Hell by the Dashboard Light or George Carlin himself. you know, because that's my favorite comedian. So, yeah. A Gen X could be your worst enemy. I mean, I already know that about myself. But a Gen X could also be your best friend. Somebody you could really talk to. Because my real life friends, I was always a friend who you could really, really talk to. Like, I was never anybody's buddy. When people had a problem, they came to me because they knew I would actually listen to them and observe what they're saying, observe what their problem was, so I could give good advice. Everybody else just went to drink with them and get high and fuck around with them. But me, you could just be yourself around me because I was always myself. I was always my weird self. You know, I was never somebody who cared about, you know, partying and going to clubs. I never had to go to clubs to, you know, to find women anyway. So it was going to clubs is stupid to me, you know, and getting drunk. But that's who I am. But if you want to fake your feelings and give, you know, and give fake support because you want to fit in, I'm not the guy, you know. And I guess I'm going to close out here.